It's not that rumbling in your tummy for nachos. It's for the No Class Podcast with your pal, Eddie.
And Matt.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hey, internet buddies. How are you doing out there?
I hope you're well. Hey, welcome back. You just got back from Florida, right?
Yeah, fighting for my
Florida.
life.
We changed the locks, but he's a wily bugger.
Yeah. I escaped from Mickey Mouse.
There you go.
He wanted to buy the rights to the long con, so I had to go out there and talk to him. There's probably going to be a movie based on the con, probably a ride, but I don't think they're going to be able to buy us out. They could not afford it.
You notice our color scheme in Mickey. That's no accident. Red, black, white.
Mickey has red.
His pants are red.
I
Come
just
on,
think about
Eddie.
I just think about the face, the head,
Uh-huh.
the Mickey head.
Right on. It's interesting. He's only got pants, and Donald Duck has no pants.
That is interesting,
Very.
said the audience.
Yes, yes. Because I know everyone out here is a big Disney fans. But y'all didn't go to Disneyland. You went to Disney World.
It's a whole world of Disney.
Awesome. There were kingdoms, you know.
Magical kingdoms.
Mm-hmm. Epcot Center.
I'll tell you one interesting thing that I learned through that is
Okay.
that our buddy Robert Kay is a big Disney fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you know, he's got a grand imagination, so go figure.
Go to where imagination takes flight.
Well
Disney
said.
World.
Yes.
This has been a paid advertisement for my wife's next trip.
Well, it sounds like y'all had a great time.
We had a time. I'll go that far.
There you go.
I was there. Things occurred.
There you
Then
go.
they let me on the plane so I could come home.
Well, you're lucky for that.
So while we're shilling for mega corporations,
Yeah.
shill some of our stuff, buddy. You got anything
Heck
to say
yeah.
about Long Con Spring?
Ooh wee! I cannot wait for spring. We're gonna have a fling in the spring.
It makes your heart sing.
It does, absolutely. Makes my sphincter tingle.
So not a lot of news on that front. We've got a sponsorship coming up,
Yeah, awesome.
so we can talk about that pretty soon. We've probably talked about it before, but we'll keep you on the ropes just a little bit longer.
Oh, okay.
Keep you curious. Not you, Matt, the
Yeah.
listener.
I am a little curious, but it's okay. Just call me Curious Jorge. But anyway, just
So what else is new since the last podcast?
well, I'm glad you ask. Nothing really that I can think of.
Oh, there's a big difference.
Uh-oh.
There's something different about you.
Oh, well.
You're a real man now.
You know
because
it.
since the last podcast, you beat Dark Souls 3.
That's right. I beat the stuffings out of Dark Souls 3.
And I would say, as I've done it, I played the game a million times, sunk a million hours into it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is my first time getting to co-op through it with somebody.
Yeah.
We tore it a new one.
We really did. But, you know, it definitely, that's the game that separates the men from the boys and both from their sanity. Because, I mean, the visuals are gorgeous. It's been a lot of fun playing it. I've had a good time. But it's definitely not a...
It's not to be taken lightly.
It's not an easy game. You know, I mean, there's a learning curve. And then just, you got to have some tenacity. But,
And since I've been on the vacation,
mm-hmm.
Matt's been playing through by himself.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's been challenged too much, but it is a little harder when you're by yourself, isn't it?
Oh, it is. But I was proud to I was doing great on my own, because it's like I would call for you to help me with the bosses throughout the Cinder Lords or whatever. But part of that was that I know that as kind of what you were hoping for was to co-op it and whatever with somebody. And then for two, they are challenging. I mean, but I was doing fine on my own until, of course, the water dancer. She is a booger.
The dancer of the
Boreal Valley.
Yeah.
She drips from the ceiling with like a big drop of water initially, and her fluid movements are very fluid, and this diaphanous veil or something follows her. I mean, it's visually it's a beautiful thing, whatever. But I mean, yeah,
It's a thing of beauty.
but it's a tough fight, and she can conveniently swivel at the hip and do a 360 spin with a 20-foot long sword. So good luck evading that crap, you know.
Well, I'm sure the longtime listeners already know what I will say about this, but now that we have our wonderful 1 to 5 rating system, what would you give Dark Souls 3?
Well, I'd give it a 4. Absolutely.
A solid 4.
A solid 4, absolutely.
I'm a solid 5.
Wow.
But you guys know that already.
Yeah. My wife gets
I'm a
on to me
fanatic.
because I don't give anything a 5.
Nothing?
Rarely. Because the idea is years ago,
There's always room for improvement.
that's it. You know, I've said there's always room for improvement. That's why it's a good thing I'm not a manager, because I'd be the guy. I'd be like, well, here's your yearly evaluation. 4. Hey man, you should be tickled to get a 4 from me. There's always room for improvement. There should be. You should always set goals. You achieve that goal, set the next goal. Set the bar higher every time. Boom.
So you guys keep that in mind the next time Matt runs a game for you. 4 stars.
I'd be tickled to get 4 stars.
Next time I run a game for you, 5 stars or nothing else.
There you go.
I'm kind of like Enterprise Rent-A-Car and all those. If it's not 5 stars, somebody's getting a talking to.
But anyway.
So part of the reason we're talking about a video game right here is
Yeah.
good games to go.
That's easy for you to say. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, this Saturday, your loathed podcasters, are going to be running games. And what are you running, Mr. Eddie? At Games to Go.
Well, Games to Go is a retro game store. They've got the new stuff too, I guess. But for me, that's pretty much where I go to get my retro games that I love so much.
And they're a really great bunch of guys. They're very knowledgeable.
Yeah, so I've already known these guys for a while that way. And now they're opening it up so they'll have the tabletop stuff and Magic.
Awesome.
And I am going to be running Death House.
Ooh.
5th edition D&D Ravenloft. You're going to be running
Hole in the Sky, Dungeon Crawl Classics.
No one saw that coming.
Well, who saw you running? Yeah,
Not sailors.
you know, yeah, no sailors. Well, hello, sailor.
Hello, sailor. Well, that's one of the things for the old gems that we bust out.
Yeah,
There's a reason they're gems,
yeah.
but you got to wonder how many people have played them.
Well, you've had a really good reception with Death House. In fact, he's literally got what would you call that?
Model?
He has a model of the house, which, you know, that props,
Terrain.
people love props and terrain or whatever. And so that kind of adds a certain level. You have a real love for anything Strahd, or the Dimension of
Ravenloft.
Dread, Ravenloft, whatever. So I know that, you know, when you really are passionate about something, it kind of usually comes across, you know.
But unfortunately, I can only get 4 stars from Matt.
Duh. But anyway, and I figured DCC, why not? And I love Hole in the Sky by Brendan J. LaSalle.
Who?
You know, the guy that was one of our special guests at last year's Long Con.
Not ringing a bell.
Yeah, that's a shame. But anyway.
So, this Saturday the 1 February, we'll be running some games at 10 a.m. bright and early in the morning.
I'll be there at noon.
Yeah, whatever.
You'll be there at 10, I'll be there at noon.
Whatever.
Okay.
Whatever. Welcome to the Whatever Podcast.
Yeah.
Featuring whatever.
Whatever.
So come check out Games to Go. Good friends of us. Some really friendly guys.
Yeah.
Can't say enough good things about them. And that's all I'm going to say about them for now. We'll give you an update on how the grand reopening goes.
Yeah.
Not a lot of Geek World news at the moment.
No, they just got in a bunch of interesting new product. I saw a little video they posted to Facebook. I can watch Facebook, but I can't post on Facebook.
Feel free to thank me for that, people. I finally had to break down and report him to my close personal friend, Android Mark Zuckerberg.
There you go.
And so Matt is temporarily off of the Facebook.
Makes sense. Mark Zuckerberg looks like an android, so there's that. But anyway, I'm in FB jail.
All right. Well, sort of kind of talking about Goodman games.
Yeah.
Since you're running some Goodman game product. How about Doom on the Warden?
I kicked it. I kicked it old school.
You did.
I did.
I didn't expect you to.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I kicked it.
Yeah, well, good.
We both did.
We both did. Well, we were fortunate enough to be able to actually play test that with
We better have our names in it,
Yeah, I hope so.
or we'll have to take that up with Jim Ward.
That's right, with Jim Ward. Yeah, but that was fun. That was where we met Brian and Bob, and they got to play in that game because just with sort of a happy accident, we met those guys when we were going to see the Memorial Stone.
Sometimes we can pull off some good hookups.
Yeah, and I mean, what luck those guys got to play. And I think Brian's character died. He lost 2 characters. I think, and James made a comment. It seemed like I don't generally kill the same person's character twice, but for you, I'll make an exception or something like that.
Yeah, he had made a special one for us because we drove 80,000 miles to come to that game.
Yeah.
That he would let you have a character, and then if that died, he'd give you a
Android.
robot to control.
Yeah.
And if that died, then you're out of it. But he's like, I never do that.
Yeah.
You get one character, and that's it.
Oh yeah, I've heard stories about James Ward was what's the word I'm looking for? He's a killer GM.
It's lethal.
Yeah, it's lethal. Which actually, this adventure, he refers to it as the Tomb of Horrors in space, to give the point of reference of how brutal it's supposed to be. But we had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a great deal.
Yeah, and playing it, there was so many. You go left or you go right. Man, we're gonna go right, but I'm so curious about what's to the left now.
Yeah.
It was just really, really interesting.
We had a lot of fun. And so what's interesting was I've thought a number of times about checking out, Goodman Games in conjunction with Mr. Ward, reissued the original like Metamorphosis Alpha rules, and they'd done a number of modules and adventures and stuff for it. But I thought about it but never followed through. Well, they're doing a deal, conveniently enough, where you can get all of the product they had produced for Metamorphosis Alpha, and if you get the whole schmear,
Caboodle, yeah.
you get a really good price point on it. So I actually kicked the whole kit
Wow.
and caboodle. So at some point in the future, look out. Y'all might get to play some old school Metamorphosis Alpha.
I did the one where you get the book as well. So
The hardbound or the softbound?
I think the hardbound.
Cool.
I was hoping there would be an option where you could do the signature with that, but there wasn't. It was kind of a weird thing how it fell in the different Kickstarter rewards.
Well, we might be able to
But
go get a
there's
signature.
a good chance we'll find him and track him down and get his signature.
Hang
so
in
it's
there,
not so
Mr.
bad.
Ward.
Yeah.
God bless him. He's had some health issues the last few years. But he's a really nice guy. I met him at NTRPG when he signed my Deities and Demigods, the one with the Mythos. And, of course, we got to game with him that time, which was cool. Super nice guy.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all of our rambling before we get into our topic.
We have a topic?
For the first time ever, we have a topic for this podcast.
I thought we were just going to freestyle.
Not
riff.
just us rambling.
Yeah, well. Okay.
Know your role
Slow your roll. Oh.
and shut your hole.
That's right. Duh. That's your pie hole. Yeah. So, So I had posted a meme to one of the East Texas role players group a while back about
And that's why he's no longer allowed on Facebook.
exactly. Well, not within 1,000 feet, but it's like this is a game of imagination. Do what you want. And that goes back to there are people that have not joined our hobby that probably would like to because they're paralyzed with fear that they're not going to do something right or won't know what die to roll or will look stupid or ignorant or whatever. And it's really a shame because I would tell those people that in all the years I've played with all the socially awkward people and whatnot, I've never seen anybody give somebody a hard time because they didn't know what die to use or didn't know the rules or whatever. Everyone has a starting point, and I think universally I can say this: most people, if not everyone, is tickled to have new people in the hobby. So they're very accepting, ingratiating. They try to make people feel comfortable. I mean, even the most socially awkward weirdo in the group is, if nothing else, they're not going to give somebody a hard time, because they're like, oh boy, somebody else is in our hobby.
Oh boy.
So yeah, well, but I say all that to say, with that being said, yeah, it's a game of imagination. Do what you want, but
Now that we have welcomed you into the fold,
yeah,
get with it.
yeah. Well, I mean, okay. For years there were the 4 kind of arch things. There were the healers. Call them whatever you want in a different game system: priest, clerics, marshals, whatever. Your role is healing, or you're a tank. You know, you're called a fighter or a warrior or a paladin or whatever. Your role is to aggravate the mob, deal some damage, keep it focused on you. I mean, this is your role. I mean, who doesn't understand this? You're the rogue. You're supposed to, pick some locks and deactivate some traps. Oh, but in combat, get in there, flank, do some damage, whatever. Try to draw too much aggro, blah blah blah. You're the wizard. You're the glass cannon, and a lot of times you're crowd control, da 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 da. Okay, so you've got your role established, but we're seeing, I guess since time immemorial, I've been in the hobby for a long time, there are people that would go, well, I don't really want to play the cleric, but I guess I'll do it begrudgingly. And they would do it, but then they wouldn't do it because they wouldn't follow the role. They'd charge in and they're trying to be like a tank or something. And then they grow aggro and they're down. And you're like, well, our healer's down. This does not bode well, and so it's not something that's new. But here's the thing I'd go back to is in previous editions, the guy's like, well, I don't really want to heal. I want to get in there and mix it up. I want to cast, offensive spells. Well, okay, yeah, I mean, you didn't have any recourse. It's like, whatever. But as of 4th edition, they had spells that like, oh, I can heal you, but when I heal, I do some damage to the mob over here. Mm-hmm. Or even now they have like bonus actions, like I can throw you a bonus action, still swing with my mace, or do my at-will little damage spell. So there's really no excuse now not to fulfill your role and heal. But I'm seeing people that are playing clerics that I genuinely believe don't have any intention to heal, other than maybe themselves, their own character. And it's just, you got to understand, for your own sake, people are doing this, the party's going to resent you because that's your role, And people are like, well, I don't want to just buff and heal. Well, then don't play the cleric. And I see them like, well, I kind of want to be cast spells like a wizard, but God, wizards are so, their hit points suck, and their AC sucks. Well, I'll play a cleric, they get spells. No, play the wizard, That way, no one's going to have going to be let down if you don't fulfill your role. Well, that's like, I did just throw shade on the people playing clerics.
Throw shade.
There are people playing tank types that I've seen, like, and the dragon lands, and the warrior goes, and I pull up my crossbow and drop back to the rear of the party. And everybody at the table's looking at him like, are you kidding me? Again, get up there, tank, draw aggro, Know your role, and within reason, fulfill that. Anyway, that's kind of, what are your thoughts, Mr. Eddie?
Well, one of the things I would say is the cleric is weird that some people justify not healing. Or just because you're playing a cleric doesn't mean you have to heal. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And why does it? Because you're fulfilling one of these 4 classical roles, like Matt said. When you look around the table and you go, what are you going to play? What role are you filling? Mm-hmm. I'm the fighter. Okay, you're going to be in the front. You're going to stop stuff from getting to the back line. The wizard's going to cast spells. He's going to do useful stuff like that, even if it's just identifying, seeing, detect magic, that sort of thing. Not even like, no, as a wizard you must cast fireball. No, you don't. You can do buffs and defensive and control, and you have a lot of options. But you're supposed to be doing wizardly stuff.
Mm-hmm. If the wizard suddenly pulled out their dagger every fight and ran up and tried to stab somebody, you have to imagine everyone in the party be looking at them like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, the one that really, I guess, resonates for me or kind of makes a good example is if you tell the party you're playing a rogue, but you go, by the way, I don't find traps and I don't, open locks. Okay, then we functionally don't have a rogue in the party.
Right.
This is maybe a great role-playing experience for you. You may have some reason that your character does that, but you're still handicapping the party.
Right.
Because they're expecting you to fill your role.
Yeah. And that's the best way to put your handicap in the party, because I can go back to the old Living Greyhawk days, and I remember a number of occasions where, like one time, when you'd have a bunch of people show up to play, and you might hear like one table go, hey, we don't have a healer over here, because there's some things you can get by without. We don't have a dedicated tank. Well, this guy over here goes, my character's kind of tanky. I can maybe do like a gear switch up or do something, I can maybe with certain buffs y'all could give me, I'll tank for the party. Oh, okay. Whatever. Or, maybe someone's like, well, we don't have a rogue, but between the wizard and the cleric, I have certain spells like knock, and there used to be a clerical spell like find remove traps or something.
Mm-hmm.
We'll load those spells up to fill that void we don't have. But it's like, if you don't have a healer, you're really hamstrung as a group. And in Living Greyhawk, it was so, you really didn't want to lose your character or die. You wanted to accomplish the adventure. It was a shame, but it might be like some of those adventures are so brutal and you didn't want to lose your character or your gear or whatever, or have to pay for a resurrection if you had the money, that, it'd be like you'd be calling out, hey, was there anybody be willing to drop off one of these other tables? Like, oh, that table has 2 healers. Or someone might go, well, you know what? I have a couple alt characters. I'll bring my healer,
But it doesn't always have to be healers. This is one of the, I guess, problem areas, but it's just as easy to go, hey, we're all casters on this table. Does anybody have some kind of a fighter?
Someone want to roll a fighter.
Yeah, it's going to be all into the back line. There's nobody blocking any aggro.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like, hey, will somebody please play a fighter
Yeah.
and do the fighter roll?
Yeah, and that's where I'll dote on Eddie, and I think me too, where if we sit at a table and people are like, I'm hell-bent to want to play this class, we'll go, okay, those have been picked. I can have fun playing anything. We pick one of those arch roles, and then we try to play to that role. Because we want people to fulfill those roles. Because when you do have a group of people that are playing to those classic roles, you'll see the synergy. It works that way for a reason. It works well, and those parties do better. And there's something rewarding in the night when you go, man, we didn't just accomplish the goal of this adventure. We
tore it up.
And it's more times honest because everybody knew their role and played to their role and did the job well and still had fun.
So you can be a cleric,
Yeah.
and you can not heal anybody.
Yeah.
Just make that known when you're designing the character and come into the table.
Sure, some oddball.
When you go, do we have a healer? And you go, oh, I'm the cleric. No, you're not. You're a cleric.
Yeah.
But if there's no healing on the table, and there's ways around it. There's enough characters now in 5th edition that have a little healing, that you can make do.
That's what I was getting at. Was we had a guy who said drop on an LG table like, well, I'm playing a druid, and we're like, okay, good. Druids aren't great healers in 3.5, but you can heal. And he loaded, and that's like at a convention, I heard a table bemoaning, oh, we don't have a healer. And I said, I was at a full table. I'm like, they looked like they really had their act together. I'm like, well, I'll come to your table. And when I got there, and they're like, what are you playing? I said, a bard. And they're in 3.5. They're like, ugh. And I went, no, you understand. I've built my bard to be the best healer a bard can be. And by the end of that play session, they were like, wow, dude, I kind of blew their minds. But I'm like, I built this bard to be a healer because I could, I could tumble in, give a heal, and tumble away and get into tight spots.
Well, if you have, say, a bard and a ranger and a paladin, that's not a bad party right there.
No.
And everybody's got a little bit of healing that they can get somebody back up, which is usually the most important thing.
Yeah, but that's one of those things, though. I've seen some people where you're like, oh, okay, we're kind of hamstrung for healing. Oh, but you're playing a paladin. And they'll be like, well, now I'm not going to load any heal spells. Well, you've got your lay on hands. Well, that's for me. Okay. And I mean, it is what it is, but at least, kind of like Eddie said, let people know up front, like, when you hear people go, oh, we don't really have a healer, go, well, I'm not loading healing spells as a ranger or a paladin or a bard or whatever. It'd be like, okay, do you have a healing wand or something? I mean,
yeah, because for me, for example, this is one of the stories that we probably tell a lot, is when I was playing a ranger with the group, they didn't even know I had a healing spell loaded because all my spell slots were for Hunter's Mark. Kind of like the paladin, all his are for smites. But that's no reason to not load it, to not have it in your back pocket. Because if somebody goes down, that's a resource that you can use.
Oh, sure.
And it's almost like the only person that's getting the heal out of me is the cleric. Because if I get them back up, then they can effectively heal everybody else here.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And I mean, I remember Leela played a really good cleric. I enjoyed her character, had a good role-playing idiom. But early on, when we were still kind of feeling out 5th edition, I remember her being a little kind of wild and loose with her casting, and maybe using some slots that we were over here, we're all kind of going, oh, I wish you'd save that for heals. But she was quick to kind of, at the combat that we'd say, like, I got enough heals to help you, but to get through the combat, but after combat, she'd go, why don't you take a short rest and use your healing dice? And we'd go, oh, yeah, good point. I mean, it's not to say you should point your finger and go, oh, your spells should be buffs and heals, cleric. No, have some fun if you have enough casting slots. And like her, it's like, well, no, I'm going to have a little fun, but don't worry, you'll get your heals and your buffs.
Well, to
she
elaborate on what you said,
she struck a balance.
To elaborate on something else that you said in the beginning of this, is you have all these bonus heals now.
Yeah.
Or you have all these bonus spells. For example, if you just throw out your spiritual weapon, you're striking every round, regardless of what you're doing. You're still getting your attack in. You're not losing anything if you heal somebody.
Yeah. And like I said, I remember having to correct a person playing a cleric, and it seems recently, but I remember they were basically, I was like, you mind throwing me a heal? And they're like, oh gosh, I already, used my action to do this other thing. And I went, healing was a healing word or is a bonus action. They're like, oh, is that right? And I'm going, wow, I'm not the one playing the cleric here, but I know that's a bonus spell. I mean, it's not the best heal, but it's something,
Well, part of this, to give you a little bit more backstory, we're playing an all cleric party now because this has so inspired us.
Yeah.
And in the last one, we're all clericing it up and doing our different spells and straight up attacks because that's it. That's the whole party.
Yeah.
But I remember somebody went down, I healing word and got them back up. Then they had all their spells to take care of themselves. The next round somebody went down, I healing worded them back up, and they had all their spells to take care of themselves. So, I mean, it can be done. You can heal somebody and still have fun.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, that's what I love is I'm like you. I don't even think I took Cure Light Wounds with my few first level spells, but I took Healing Word because I knew as a bonus action I can get somebody back on their feet, and we're all supposed to be clerics, so, and it is an interesting, funny game. But it's like when you think about that, we were talking about how fun this has been and how we've enjoyed it and the dynamic that clerics can fill. Some of us are, let me step up and tank a little bit. I've got a slightly better AC or something, whatever. Hey, and people have been good about like, let me throw out a bless or whatever and buff. So I'm seeing healing and buffing out of everybody, which is good. We're bunch of clerics, but like, can you imagine trying to play a party that's all wizards? Like, ooh, who's going to tank?
The half orc.
There you go. But anyway, and you could probably play an all rogue party.
Oh, that would be team stealth all the way.
Exactly.
You could say that a cleric party is broke, but I think almost any one class party would be pretty broke, or at least they'd be all pretty reasonable.
All warrior. I don't know. You have no healing. You have no trap detection or lock picking.
But you have your, I'm trying to think what it is, like
just
second wind
force.
or whatever, don't you?
Your second wind, true.
So, I mean, you can do the, like, I'm going to take a knee and heal up here, and you've got a lot more hit points to burn through.
That's true. Good
And
ACs.
as long as you make it through the end of the combat, healing potions.
Yeah.
You got more healing. You're going to do more damage.
Yeah.
You're going to have more hit points, and you've probably got a great armor class.
And again, it's like smart play. If you see that one warrior in the mix was kind of getting beat down, he slips away. Somebody else comes up, draws aggro, and you just kind of rotate out, kind of share the damage around.
Yeah, and you got to think of how much synergy you could get off the different feats and abilities.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you took the, I can't remember, but it's like the sword and board one where it's like, hey, if you stand next to me, I can give you a +2 to your AC.
Yeah.
And then the next guy can take one where it's like, hey, anytime somebody tries to hit you, I get a shot on them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could think of a lot of good ways,
No.
you could think of a lot of good ways to cheese it out.
Well, no, not me.
And really,
Coach Cheese? No.
I think a team of assassins, rogue assassins.
Oh, no. Years ago, back in 3.5 days, I tried to convince a party to play an all drow party.
Yep.
Because you don't need light. You have dark vision. You can sneak up on everybody in the dark. They need the light to see. You don't. Whenever you snuff the light out, they're blind. You're stabbing and ganking. And, oh, no. An all rogue party would be brutal.
Yeah, and if you did the assassin thing,
Oh, yeah.
round one, you put almost everything down.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're going to get that first attack, and then you're going to get that huge amount of first round damage. That'd be pretty sexy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. Like, so it'd be interesting. There's a lot of parties that could be interesting, like an all ranger party or, whatever.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes it's, in a way, it almost makes sense. Like all these wizards have left for some purpose from, the Wizards College or,
Well, yeah, isn't that the Wizards Enclave or whatever that module, the DCC mod?
Yeah.
Isn't that one in all Wizards?
Oh, don't start me lying, but yeah, that's it.
And I
Sounds
know
neat.
it seems like at NTRPG, maybe last year or the year before, they had the celebrity game where they all played Wizards.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
So, yeah. Definitely, that's another thing that you don't do very much.
No, but like
Put
we
a little
said,
pep in your step.
yeah, we've made it fun and interesting for us. Like, well, a while back, we decided to do an all half orc party. That's some of the most fun I've had playing 5th edition so far. With that party was
Embrace the low intel.
Yeah, we're like here's the thing is, like, I see newer players do the things everybody does when they're a newer player, and it's kind of like Eddie said, we were doing the Death on the Warden, where like, man, we went right, but I wonder what was left. Well, but you go, well, it's kind of like you see new players do what classically I call a monkey trap, where to the old seasoned player, we look at each other across, tell me and Eddie that visually really sure, like, nope, this is a monkey trap, don't touch it. And this new player will be like, ooh, I want to go up and touch that gem or pull that lever, and we go, well, let's see what happens here, and watch it blow up in their face. But it's the hilarious thing with the half orcs. We knew things were obvious monkey traps, but we did it anyway. We would purposely do it because we're like, oh yeah, these are half orcs, they're dumbasses. And then so hilariously, even because the den of being a half orc and what the Lord loves children and fools or whatever, we would survive the stupid thing.
I remember there was one pillar or something that started like this evil chanting, and we all started chanting
at the same
along.
time, me and Eddie are like, we touch it, whatever. Yeah, we start chanting too, But it was too funny.
Yeah, those guys would be a lot of fun to dust off to.
Oh yeah, because I remember like where normally you kill some goblins, like, we're done. We kill them, we're like, oh, this is good eating. We stoked up a fire, roasted some goblin, and the one not half orc with us was like, what the? We're like, want to try some goblin? Tastes like chicken.
Now, one thing I want to go back to on the cleric thing.
Yeah, we kind of went off on
that. You hear. Yeah. We're allowed to go on tangents. We're famous for our tangents.
Duh.
But one thing that I can hear you screaming to your listening device here is that it is more effective to heal after the combat than in the combat. Like, the cleric doesn't have to heal you during the combat, which I'm going to say that is wrong because of one big thing: death saves. Mm-hmm. You may not get 3 death saves. Right. That's nice, and you can go, oh, I got 3 rounds to get to this guy. Mm-hmm. You don't always.
Yeah.
Crap can happen. A 1 clunks out. Some monster decides to come take a hit on him and give him 2 crits, or give him 2 death fails right there. You need to heal people when they go down.
We played with the cleric, and he was a good guy, and he played a decent cleric. And but he had that policy of like, no, I'll wait till you go down. Well, a character went down, and then it's like before he could get over to heal them, we were fighting the kind of monster that it was part of its repertoire, its thing to do, its scripted actions, was that it ran up and ripped his heart out of his chest and took a big bite out of it. Oops. Read the wording on the 5th level little minor resurrection spell. The body has to be intact. Yeah. And so the player was just looking, hands wide open, looking at the cleric like, really? And that cleric players were like, look at the GM, like, I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, and that's when the rest of us, me and Eddie, were shaking our head and mumbling, this is why we've been telling you can't wait till somebody goes down. And I'll tell you, I think the 3 saves thing is similar to what was in 4th edition. Again, the much maligned 4th edition had the 3 death saves, remember?
I have no idea right now, to be honest.
But it had something like that, and I can remember an example of running an adventure that ended up being a TPK in 4th edition. And the thing about it was there was a group of wraiths, which wraiths are a tough enemy in any edition, and they're really ganking the party. But there was this one over wraith that had this death field around it. Well, sure, a player would go down. Oh, I'm going to get my so-and-so saves. But just like in 5th edition and 4th edition, its effect is going off. You're down on the ground. Boom, when it hits you, that's like an automatic failed save or whatever. And I think in 5th edition, if you're struck while you're down, any damage is considered like boom, boom, 2 failed saves right there. So you can see where, the whole mentality of like, well, wait till you go down. No, that's really not. There's so many ways that the character's going to die. and be like I guess a permanent or die that where you could have got them back on their feet. Now it's going to be an expensive res, blah blah blah.
And really, there's a lot of times when that can start the domino effect for the party.
Mm.
If you let the fighter go down,
Well,
guess who's going down next?
that was how this encounter was a TPK, because like I said, one person would go down and they thought, well, we'll try to get to him, because that party had a dedicated cleric and it had a bard that would, kind of back up, spot heal, off tank. They were definitely the jack of all trades in this party. Well, the cleric went down, the bard was going to try to help him, boom, he went down. No, I think it was what? The cleric went down, the warrior went down, then the bard went down. And then, in short order, the wizard tried to kind of like, I'm going to hold him off, get out of here, so it's not TPK to the ranger. The ranger hemmed and hawed. It's kind of like another thing we've complained about is like everybody be on the same page. Either we're all running or we're all standing and fighting. How many times we go, all right, we're running, right? Comes one guy's turn. I take a swing. Wait, what did we just agree on? Well, so now it's like, now you're disjointed. Well, 3 people have already ran. It came his turn. He stood and he attacked, but he didn't it's not the hero like, I'm going to hold off the thing. No, he just on a goof, like, I want to take a swing, see what happens. Like, dude, be unified. That's another one. But anyway, but yeah, so by the time the ranger finally thought, oh, crap, the chips are down, I guess I should have ran. They went to run. Nope. The Wraiths just ran her down. It was a TPK. And here's the hilarious part is they didn't let anybody in the town know that they were going down the cavern under the church or whatever. So I thought, I can't justify this not being a true unrecoverable TPK because no one knows you're down here.
Yep.
It was really sad because there were some really fun characters that the players role played. It hurt to kill
those characters.
Yeah. But they played well, but like I said, it was that bad domino effect with that race field that that's a tough encounter. I think you guys probably had a tough time with that encounter.
Yeah.
As I remember when I ran Scales of War again.
So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about on the Know Your Role is if you've got some role-playing idiom, you're like, there's a reason that my rogue doesn't find traps, or there's a reason my character doesn't do something that is associated with this class. That's fine. I'm happy for you.
But make it clear.
Go play that character, but make it clear that somebody else is going to have to fill that spot.
Yeah. And that's something that might be a good thing, because you say there's times where I really kind of want to play a rogue. Someone else goes, oh, I'm playing a rogue. And I might go, well, I'll defer to them. But it might be like, well, how about I'll play some different kind of rogue? Like, there's different builds or there's different things like, I'm going to put all my energy into being really great at spotting traps. Mm-hmm. Tell the other guy, maybe you should focus on being the best lock picker around. We'll put all of our feats and energy into focusing in different directions or something. I mean,
Well, do you remember way back in 2nd edition where they had like the trap springer dwarves and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of like their only thing because you could allot out your different skill points. Mm-hmm. So it was like your base starting stuff instead of having 10% pickpockets and this and that. You didn't have any of that stuff, but you were really good at all the trap stuff, kind of like a professional dungeoneer.
As you say, yeah, you're a dungeoneer, yeah.
And I usually lean more that way when I play my rogues. I'm not the guy that's going in there and picking pockets for the most part.
Yeah, they're that heart of gold, and it's kind of like they eventually came out with a class and then called a scout. And even now anyway, but yeah, I mean, there's the idea of like, more of the woodland scout, skirmisher guy, who happens to have these skills, but you're not trying to pick locks and, steal. You're not a burglar or whatever, yeah.
The other thing I would like to discuss about knowing your role is you may come up with a great character, but when you're coming up with all this great backstory and how you want to play this character, make them useful to the party. Don't make it something that it's like, I've got this barbarian, but he only uses crossbows. It's like, you're really not filling that role, and you're not being handy. Some people make like cowardly characters, and it's like, I'm gonna run away for a round. Okay, maybe that's a good role-playing experience for you, but if you think about it in your party, would they hang out with this guy?
Right.
Would your characters hang out with your character? Why would they justify that?
And I've had people try to say like, well, I mean, I work with people at my job that I don't like. I'm like, yeah, but you don't really have a choice in that. Your employer says you have to work with them unless they but even then, if they crossed a certain line at work that wasn't conducive to the work environment, they'd get written up enough times and they would be let go. But I mean, this is something that you're out in the world in the inn or tavern going, well, let's see who's going to go with us. And the first time you saw, Cowardly Joe run away, you'd go, yeah, we're getting rid of this guy.
Or if you have Backstabbing Pete,
yeah,
where it's like every time we get into a fight, if it looks like it might go the other way, he starts joining the other side.
that happened.
How long would that fly?
That happened one time,
Yeah.
That'd be the last time. But I tell this story. I've probably never told on here, but we used to play with a guy that, and I always thought it was crummy. Well, not crummy. I always thought it was just like convenient that people always played a rogue. They played the rogue with a heart of gold that never stole from the party or da 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 da. And I thought, man, a real grind ball, raised in the streets, hungry rogue would probably be the sleaze that would steal from everybody. But nobody ever plays that way, and it's probably good because they realized people would run them off. But I'm open-minded enough, and that I loved it. We played with a guy once that, he stole from the party. He stole from everybody. He would steal anything that wasn't nailed down, and I loved it. But I think the other member of the party, Gary, he couldn't stand it. So he's constantly calling for like, I'm
Watching him.
I'm watching him. And he finally made a perception check or whatever it would have been, and caught him in the act. So, of course, he trounced the poop out of the rogue. Well, then the rogue goes good. And he said, this is my role-playing idiom, but now I can justify that my guy wouldn't do it again because he's scared of your warrior. You kill me. Unless, of course, if the rogue had been a real devious guy, I might be like, well, I'll just poison you or stab you in the back or you're not looking or something. But luckily, our party's never turned to that kind of... I've heard about stories about people that, killing each other's characters. But anyway, so then my wizard eventually caught him in the act. And so it's not my idiom as a wizard to beat the crap out of him. Instead, I charmed him.
Quite charming.
And this was old school D&D because based off his intelligence, he was charmed for like a month. So yeah, and then he gets to make a save, and he failed it. So that's like another month in game time, and he failed it. And it was hilarious because he'd be like to the gym, has it been a month? Yeah, make your roll. Clunk. Failed it. I'm like, tee-hee. And on top of, I'm telling him, don't steal from me, I'm your friend. But then also in the middle of combat, if something jumped on me, I'd be like, come help me, lead us. And he'd be like, ugh. And he'd come over to tank from my wizard and get the mob off me. I'd be like, tee, thanks, buddy. And he was like, ugh, I can't wait till this charm. But at the end of the charm, I was like, all right, you going to steal from me again? No. He had a role-playing justification why I wouldn't steal from my character anymore because he saw what, Anyway, but I didn't mind a person that once again played to the role of a wizard and really kind of, because I've played a rogue one time where I was fleecing from the bar. I was taking about 10% off the top, skimming a little bit, and most everybody was like, rolled their eyes like rogues. But one guy just went all through him. He couldn't stand it. It just drove him nuts, and he literally suicided his character in the effort of trying to expose my rogue. And I mean, the guy never came back. I mean, that pissed him off so bad, he just like never came back. And I'm like, good night. I mean, it's just a game, And it's not like, anyway, like Linos was way worse than that. I'm talking about the guy. I mean, he was stealing with both hands. I mean, really valuable stuff. Anyway. But yeah, I mean, I'm, and that's the other thing. That's a whole other story. But like people that can separate character knowledge from player knowledge, it's hard for some people to do. And I'm tickled for people that can go, okay, my character doesn't know you're stealing from us. He's like, hey, I love the rogue. He's a great guy. But that guy, he knew I'm stealing because we have to talk about the table. I guess I should have been passing notes, old school. But I thought that these guys were big enough to be able. No, well, at least not that one guy. It just went all through him that I was stealing. But then if I'd been passing notes, everybody'd be like, hey, wait a minute, what's this about? But that's kind of fun sometimes, though.
It is.
Yeah. So, anyway.
So when you're playing your character, just keep in mind, you can be as lone wolf and edgelord, whatever you want, but be useful to the party. Yeah. It's a game about fun. You can play your character, but make it fun for everybody. Yeah. Think about it as the cleric when you're like, well, I shouldn't heal this guy yet. How much fun are they having playing a character laying bleeding out on the ground? So if you have no other reason to heal them, just do it for that, to get them back in the game so they can have fun again.
Good call.
I mean, it's something.
Yeah, that's a good call. Because there's a guy we used to play with that every time he would make some character that was a loner. Mm-hmm. And you were like, ugh, So it was a nightmare for the GM trying to somehow keep him with the group focused on the same. I mean, literally, this guy, if the party said we're going right, I'm going left. Ugh. It's just obnoxious.
I hate people like that.
Yep. Hate's a strong word, but yeah.
You hate them.
As a GM, it is aggravating. I'll put it that way. And actually, as a player, a lot of times it's not. They're like, ugh. But that's a great way to not get invited back to that next time the group plays. I'm just warning people that you can do that, but it's like eventually people are going to go because people are not that desperate for players.
Yeah.
In this day and age, we're lucky. We're blessed in that regard. We used to put up with a lot of crap in the day. God, we need players. I guess I'll put up with that one guy. But nowadays, it's like, yeah, that guy plays a lot of characters like jerks. You're out. You're out of the shrine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Come back with another character.
Yeah.
Your character has been fired.
Yeah.
You're not out of the party, but your character's out.
Yeah.
And then if the next guy can't hack it, we'll have a serious talk. But I know there's been times like that before where we've had characters that you're like, there's no way this party would hang out with that character.
Yeah. We've never had to do it, but I can remember a buddy of mine that I never knew this because we had really, ironically enough, never role played together that much, but we were buddies and we'd gamed, but never to any great degree together. But he was basically asked, like his group did an intervention with him, and basically they all were like, "Dude, we like you, but you're not welcome at the table. Like, no hard feelings, but go away." And he hurt his feelings really, really bad. But some years later, I gamed with him in a prolonged campaign, and I saw
everything.
And I was like, oh my God, because I remember at first I was indignant and thought, what a bunch of jerks, and I felt bad for him. Now, in the fullness of time, I learned why that group had ejected him. He could be a real jerk at the table. And I mean, needless to say, the next time we build a group, guess who didn't get an invite?
Yeah. And your character's backstory is not a reason for you to be a jerk. For you to embrace it's like, is this character a jerk or is this player a jerk?
Yeah. And there's ways to role play. Like Eddie, I'll give him props. He was playing a character that was not a nice guy. Is really
what? I've never run a character
but
like
the
that.
great thing was he was subtle with it because he wasn't all ham-fisted. We're like, I'm obviously a mustachio twirling villain. No, I mean, he was evil, but it was very subtle. And, so it wasn't over the top. It wasn't obnoxious. But, his character was not a good guy, But it was fun for me as a GM. I'm like, oh, wow, because you don't see a lot of people play.
But he was useful to the party.
Exactly.
And the party didn't know all these nefarious things.
Because it shows you players, and I'm guilty, don't pay attention. Eddie role-played the whole campaign where his character had this constant cry for help. And the party,
an alcoholic.
He was a raging alcoholic, and he was role-playing, it was, and at some point, after the campaign was over, he sat everybody down and said, now let me have a talk with y'all. You guys completely glossed over the fact that this guy, like, why did y'all not role play an intervention? Or didn't you like the guy? And we're like, well, yeah, we did. But just like
he was
in
so
real
lovable.
life, where he's so lovable, and there's people in the workplace
lovable
that
drunk.
There's all the hints are there, but no one ever like, well, it's not my place, or whatever.
Well, when you talk about being a useful character, I can remember in that when there was a few times where on his turn he'd take a drink.
Yeah.
It'd be like, we're in the middle of this combat, and your character takes a drink.
Or there was stuff where, and I liked the way Eddie played this, if it was the kind of adventure where you start in town and you let that next morning, guess whose character is hung over and like laying across their horse. And so he basically, it wasn't until halfway through that next day, like, there's that combat where you get ambushed on the trail around 9 o'clock in the morning. We've just left the inn. His characters, we're hitting him, wake up. And he's snoring. He's hung over really bad and drunk. And so, yeah, and we were like, ugh, but,
And that's where you have to go with the fine line to, is this a fun role-playing experience for everyone?
Yeah.
Or are you not being useful? Would they be like, we've got to leave this guy?
Yeah.
And like I said, they didn't really, he was the lovable drunk.
Yeah.
They were like, he parties too hard.
And you walked the line in that you did that stuff, and we would be a little exasperating, but you didn't do it like the whole day or the whole time. And there was a role-playing idiom, and you kind of knew how to toe the line in that you made it clear to anybody paying attention, this guy had a problem, but anyway.
Which makes me think about the wizard in that group. You couldn't take him to talk to anyone. He was always going to screw that up for you.
Think of the A-Team back in the day where they had to drug BA to get him onto the plane or the he wouldn't fly our helicopter or whatever. With the same kind of principle, we had got the rest of the party on distract the wizard duty while the faceman went to talk to people, because if not, the wizard would shit all over any kind of
let's go talk to the king.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get executed if you go.
Because he would go out of his way to be, and his character was supposed to be this incredibly socially awkward kind of goofball, but
was it the player or the character?
Exactly.
And TJ.
Yeah, and you have to think that, no, I mean, it was this role-playing idiom, but you have to think, I mean, the party, like you said, would either go, we got to get rid of this guy, he's going to get us literally executed or thrown in the bottom of a dungeon. You can't talk to a king or baron or duke or whatever this way, or the high cardinal of the church of Zimzam or whatever. So we had to do, the monk had to cold cock him or something one time, because he was hell-bent that he was going to be part of that conversation or something. And so it was, I laugh about it now, but, you know.
So it's not that you can't do these things. It's not that you can't role play your character. It's just make sure role playing your character is still fun for everyone else.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Would the party hang out with this character?
Yeah, that's
boils down to that.
That's the litmus test. Like, you know.
Would you want to hang out with your character?
Yeah. And I mean, it's good. I'm tickled to see anybody role play. It's good to have a theme in mind and an idea when you're making your character. Or not long after you've rolled them up, you go, you know, like a personality starting to congeal from the either, you know.
Like that takes us, I think, to our Fallout game.
Yeah.
Where we were all, this is a one shot.
This is a throwaway.
But slowly but surely, as we played more games, and we're like, oh, this is becoming an ongoing game. And they began getting a life of their own. Even in that first session, we're like, yeah, these are throwaway characters, but we started fleshing them out so much.
We really
liked
liked them. Yeah, and it's funny in a way, because sometimes I kind of wag my finger like, you should already have sort of a theme or a concept or something in mind, or find one of those questionnaires about, tell me about your character. But I mean, sometimes it's kind of like,
that's where the character found us.
Yeah, it's
to make it cheesy as possible.
Just to kind of to see the character kind of organically, yeah. And
I'll say that's another one where I try to keep in mind, make your character useful.
Yeah.
Because my character in Fallout is not Mr. Combat. And most of the time he doesn't want to get into the combat. Mm-hmm. But he'll come charging out on the Brahmin. Mm-hmm. He's useful. He doesn't stand there for a round and pick his nose and kick rocks.
Yeah.
He at least is doing something to help the party.
It might be really wild and goofy and over the top, but he's doing something, and he's useful outside of combat,
Exactly.
And that's another thing is, let's say you had a character, like say you played a rogue that you said he's a complete coward. Like we were talking about the coward character earlier, but here's the difference. If he's like, I'll go do reconnaissance, and he sneaks up there and he comes back and goes, I almost peed my pants, but there's 3 orcs sitting behind a campfire, and he's picking locks and opening doors and setting up traps, or I'll take guard duty. Well, okay, he sounds like he's pretty useful to the party. Mm-hmm. But in combat, if he's like, I get to the back of the party and shoot with a bow at him, I'm like, okay, whatever. You're still kind of contributing. I mean, that character's contributing to the party, But it'd be like if I'll play the warrior who's a coward. No, thank you. You're fired.
Yeah, or he's gonna have to overcome.
Yeah,
his cowardice in the battle.
Yeah, let's see this great story grow out of, in short order, he's overcome his cowardice or something.
Or he has to put it on during combat. He's a coward, but he knows he can't run because he's so emotionally wrapped up into his what people think about him. He doesn't want you to know he's a coward. Yeah. The party knows.
And it goes back to, like I said, Eddie playing a subtly evil character. How better would it be if you weren't really ham-fisted and over the top with this cowardly warrior? If it was, we have to be paying attention to draw the lines, to connect the dots that, oh wow,
cowardly nuggets.
This warrior at the end of the day is absolutely mortified. His combat, he's a coward. And that's the really kind of the deeper role play where it's more subtle, and if the players are paying attention, But anyway, yeah.
So, putting a bow on this whole thing.
Please do.
Play whatever you want to play. Play however you want to play. But if you want to keep playing, keep in mind being useful to the party. Mm-hmm. Be a character that the party would want to hang out with, that they have some use for, that they wouldn't realistically go, we're leaving you back in town. Mm-hmm. And if you say you're going to fill a role in the party, fill that role. Mm-hmm. You could be the cleric and not be the healer.
but make it clear up front.
Yeah. And even then, I'd still say when the chips are down, you might want to pull out one of those heal spells.
Yeah.
If you have the ability, why not?
Yes, indeed.
All right. I'm sure we will get a lot of feedback off this hot take of ours.
Yeah.
You love that saying, don't you? Hot take.
Yeah, that's your hot new thing. That's your new word, like my bespoke.
Oh my.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, I see that we are all out of hit points. We will see you next time on the No Class Podcast.
Solid.